welcome to this IDnext lunch break, the first one in 2022. Well, happy to have Daniel here as our main speaker for this session. Seems to be an interesting topic regarding all the subscriptions that we got, like I said. It's really a topic I think that will, based also on the presentation of Daniel, will probably give some discussion there. So let's see how this evolves. But first, my name is Robert Gaskamp. I'm the founder of IDnext platform, founded almost more than 11 years ago to start setting up a network community for expert professionals in the world of digital identity. And for those who doesn't know IDnext yet, main mission is all about sharing knowledge and bringing people together. Again, there are multiple ways to do this. So as you know, we also have our meetups and annual events in order to share knowledge experience based on digital identity. But also for already last period of time, we also organize IDnext lunch breaks. So when you are able to have a break and sit down, take a sandwich or something else, but also have a good discussion regarding interesting topics that we are going to have today, but also in the future. Again, we are an open, independent platform. We try to create awareness regarding digital identity, but also provide knowledge network platform. And well, like our slogan states, we so promote, insight, and share. And we can't do it alone. We also need you in order to do this. Again, glad that there is a big interest in also joining this session. But again, it's not about me. It's about our guest of today, Daniel Dussault, convener European Self-Sovereign Identity Framework from EPSI. He is going to, well, let's say, guide us to the decision towards a decentralized digital identity for all Europeans. I think also he has have an introduction by his own, so I think it's just good to ask you, Daniel, to share your screen and give your insights of this really let's say transition discussions going on. Before we start, one thing, it's gonna be an interactive session, but still, please raise your hand via Teams in order to have a question. You can also put your question in the chat, so we will try to monitor the questions there and try to put them on a correct moment with Daniel and make it therefore a bit well fluent. So Daniel.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert, and thanks for the invitation, and happy to be here while my presentation is uploading so that you can see my screen. The title is very heavy, yes, to be very clear. So I hope everybody sees my screen. Is that the case already, Robert?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, fair. As a title, I have put it Digital Identity Reloaded, and a very political or social statement, a transition towards a decentralized digital identity for all Europeans to end the area of data exploitation and surveillance. So not a light lunch topic, sorry for that. But I think something that is very prominent and needs to be discussed. My name is Daniel. I work as a convener for the European Self-Sovereign Identity Framework. But working for that decentralized network is, of course, also is a bit difficult to you just position your job. I work also in the public sector in Belgium, but this role is on behalf of the network of public sectors that are creating this aspect. Yeah? This session is also mainly about another position. Also, the concern that I share with many people is how does digital identity evolve. So some topics I will share are not always backed up by the Commission or by public sector. There's also concerns that I have personally that I want to share. But to put the discussion, I put things a bit sharp. But as Robert mentioned, please, if you have questions, let this be interactive. It's not something that I just propose. It's something that I would like to have some discussion on this. How do I structure the session? We're gonna first dive a bit in what the status is of the EU digital identity. for some very involved in that, and I see the list of participants you are, will not be much new information. But then I will tackle two objectives. One is the technical input that is currently given from in the decentralized identity community towards that EU digital identity, but that is on the technical level. What our main goal is, of course, to see, okay, what is the social and political input that came from it? So that is a bit the next dimension. So the session will be both technical, but also very political to say so. How do you see these concepts? And of course, Q&A during the session or during, of course, the whole presentation. Okay, let's start with the EU digital identity. I think this code is not something that is new to you. You have seen that mid-2021 when Ursula von der Leyen and also Thierry Breton and Vestager, the commissioners, also released their big plan, their big ambitions to form a secure European e-identity, one that would be trustworthy, that every citizen can use, that can be used in many, many cases. And also a technology where the control would be given to the citizens of the data and the data is used. So it was a very ambitious and, of course, political statement that included, of course, a lot of use cases. So where currently the current eIDAS aspect only focuses on very limited identification, also public sector driven mainly, or that was at least the penetration that they had the last 10 years. Now they see it as a bigger aspect. So you wanted to give citizens tools that they can control or they can to manage a lot of credentials. You see passwords, you see music events, you see banking, you see mobilities. So a lot of things they would like to be included in there. So they started mid 2021 to base on it. And if you look at the principles, but that's also not new information for most of them, what are their main topics? They wanted to be available for every EU citizen, every business in that, and it should be also widely usable in very different use cases, from personal information to purposes aspects. And of course, giving, again, what was mentioned, giving control to every user. If you read those kind of things, and most people are, I think, also a bit active in the whole decentralized identity and SSI sphere, if I look to the participants, you see that this is very much inspired by those principles. You see that self-identity, the data ownership. So we see that there is a paradigm shift also in the political message to bring those aspects. So that was, I think, the community of decentralized identity was very happy when this was released. So it gave us some hope to influence it. Now, if you look, of course, to their timeline and their focus, maybe a first attention point, their focus and what the plans are after the discussion started with the eIDAS working group. Their first focus is to deliver a draft architecture reference framework. That should be available by the Q3 of this year, so that a tender for a first reference implementation of a wallet, because they want to make a wallet that contains all those categories, could be granted or procured, and of course could be developed also towards Q4. The Q4 will be important. Then you have the first reference implementation. In the parallel level, the stakeholder input, because at this moment, I do be clear, it was mainly public sector driven, eIDAS experts driven. Now they are looking at, okay, how can the other parties, other stakeholders give their input? And there, of course, you see also there's a lot of work already been done. And then, of course, the stakeholder management, they need to come in to see how they can change. Their ambition is also to have, and it's just been released, in a moment I will be sharing more information on that. The pilot calls are now being released, so it is their ambitions to say, okay, how can the large-scale pilots in 22, this is a bit incorrect, sorry, corrected in slides, it is 2023, where the large-scale pilots will start. So we really want to implement this aspect. In parallel, they will also invite all the member states to build their wallet implementation. Because, as you know, there will be potentially at least 27 member states or 27 wallet implementation for each country. Yeah, each country is sovereign in this. They need to develop it, of course, based on the regulations. And member states will be also the ones that will be guarding that certification track. So that is a bit their time limit. It's ambitious because it's growing even bigger. So in a phase of 2 years, there will need to be something stable, and it needs to be something very concrete. Now, and here we come more and more closely to the discussion, of course. They want to be as technology neutral, identity model neutral as possible. Yeah? But of course, in the reality, you cannot stay, even with the framework, technology neutral. At this moment, there's a lot of discussion in different countries, in different member states, in different sectors, in different working groups, which kind of model would be interesting to use within this new identity model, the EU digital wallet. We have, of course, the traditional parties that are looking, okay, but we have already a perfect solution, so we can solve even those new things, federated identity solutions, traditional data sharing. We are stable, we are mature, let's use the old things, the old aspect. Yeah, but there's, of course, a growing group that sees, okay, but no, we have to see fundamental other ways to interact. Yeah? So there, of course, the decentralized identity, which is an example from our EPSI perspective, but you can put a lot of other things there where you put more the user in contact. No? Those models are now not very in discussion, but are in competition and see, okay, how can they influence this? Yeah? It's not given or not taken that the Commission had or EU has already have made a choice on this. What they do is still want to say, but we are technology neutral, and we want to be, in the best case, supporting everything. But then, of course, the fear is that you end up with these kind of pictures. You want to have something hybrid. You want to have something that will combine those model federated but decentralized. So how could we potentially take this on? So that's an important aspect that we need now clearly want to take in consideration, want to have that the flow and the timeline, what kind of model will prevail. Now, if we look at purely the technical input, and that is also what is currently all. So what kind of input could a decentralized identity approach provide? And this is kind of discussion that is now currently going on in the working groups that from EPSI, but also from in member states, people are giving input towards the requirements of the EU wallet to say, okay, take into consideration a few topics that you need to be sure to be included. And one of those aspects, I give you a bit of the list, what is currently on the agenda to say, okay, you need at least to have those kind of topics included. What we want to see is, of course, we from in member states, but also from in the EPSI environment of SSI environment, what we would like to see is at least that you have to say, okay, you need to have a multi-protocol wallet. So don't close us at this moment to say, okay, we need something that will work with verified credentials with DIDs. So that is, I think, a very important topic that we now want to raise into the requirements, because we think that a coexistence with old models, new models needs to be in place. And of course, seeing how a transition model can be in place. We believe strongly, we believe from our view that a decentralized model would be the best fit, but we need to see how can a transition model be used. So very important that EU digital identity needs to take in consideration is to say, okay, how can we support the verified credentials and the decentralized identifiers? What we also propose, and that comes mainly from in the educational working groups that are there, how you can support decentralized trusted registries. So how can we see that not only centralized systems can be used in that context, but the wallet is also able to look at decentralized trusted registries, so to gain the necessary information, to gain, of course, also the trust. What we are also discussing in the different working groups is, of course, you need to support multiple business domains. So not only look at just purely identification, but we also need to see how can more contexts be used. So on the business level, on banking, on finance, or whatsoever, they also need to be included. And that is also a big task that they need to see, and they need to be supported in that bigger project. For that reason, we also see that in that EU digital identity aspect, you need to have more standardization on verified credentials. Now there's emerging standards that we very use in the decentralized aspect, so we need to see how we can include those kind of things. So standards are necessary, but we also need to mature those kind of standards. So in the evolution that we have, it need to be foreseen. And of course, the biggest interest is that we have large-scale pilots, but also looking at new technology. So don't only pilot the things that we already have, but also see how we can improve innovative things. This is a bit a kind of lobby work discussion that is now going on. We have the positive feeling that this technical input could be successful, but I need to speak and could be and should be. But I think we have a positive feeling that this is right on the agenda. Of course, if you look at just the political message, it is of course aligned with this decentralized identity. Now, coming back a bit also to the question that Andy Tobin has on how will the Commission determine which model to use, that is a very difficult question because it is a technical group and they want just have requirements. So you have to say, okay, give me requirements and I build you. And we tried on several occasions to have a fundamental discussion on, okay, which model do we use? How do we see that? What is the vision? But of course, with technical people, with technical aspect, they are very uncomfortable to discuss a grand vision. So that is, when we come to the social and political aspect, I see this from my personal view as the most important one. You need to have a discussion on the vision and then determine technical thing. They could look at that the other way around, have our technical requirements, and then we'll build them. So that will be, that is, and I do completely agree. Your model agnostic aspect, that doesn't exist. You cannot be technology neutral by the end of the days. So that is very difficult. That's why also in the second part, I will discuss political aspects on this. Now, on the technical standards, there is a big discussion. The question of Sebastian. So it needs to be multi-protocol. I don't know if some protocols will clash in this, so that will be very difficult. But at least need to be that not only verified credentials, but also potential other ISO standards need to be included. That will be a very big, difficult thing. We have the world that we have. We have ICAO, we have verified credentials, we have a lot of things, or all those other protocols that exist need to be included. So in discussion. So the schedule reference wise will be staying at the high level, but the technical requirements need to come. Joost, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, Rieks, the name is.
Sorry, Rieks, sorry.
Yeah. I'm getting a bit concerned given lots of blogs that have lately risen on that the whole setup seems to be like, let's make it possible to exchange high quality data, and people get concerned that it will be misused. So I do not see any effort that is being directed towards the prevention or the detection of possible misuse. Give an example of that, parties will just ask you for a dump of your credentials, or parties know that they can now get a telephone number that they don't need, but it can become a qualified telephone number, and there is no way, even though people say that users control their data, but if the verifier says, I need it anyway or else, then that's what you have to deal with. So are there any ideas about electronically supporting the prevention and the detection of unethical use of this stuff or unregulatory use of this stuff?
Rix, that's a perfect illustration what is definitely missing in this aspect. On a technical level, they will have solution, but on the more ethical aspect, and I think Henk also refers to that, the ethical aspect is missing in this. How do we really protect those aspects? But giving a lot of data towards the citizens, and we have that discussion, is a honeypot. And the citizen is unprotected to deal with many big parties. So that will be, I think, in the second part we will go into that. How do we really protect the citizen? Because he is in an unbalanced power situation. So
Absolutely.
I have my paper, and then I have big parties that claim or even oblige me to share data. But I'm not in a position to refuse that because I can be denied services aspect. So that is, I think, the most fundamental thing. So in a moment, we'll jump into that discussion. But I just wanted to stress, and I think, Rix, you perfectly aligned with that. This is technical input given to technical people, but the story doesn't end there. So we need to see how we will help it. Now, of course, the technical track continues, and maybe as you have seen, those calls are already out, and they are a bit configured in two ways. You have the bigger EU digital identity piloting, so large-scale piloting on different use cases, education, digital driver credentials, finance. So everybody can apply to say, okay, how can we form a big consortium that will test the new EU digital wallet? Included in that call is also more from in the EPSI side, so the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. There will be also calls, but only look at, okay, how can we look at social security and also on education to see how they can be implemented in a more decentralized way. But of course, those two things need to combine. So the function is a bit to see how can the decentralized components that EPSI building or other things are building also be used into that EU digital wallet. There is, of course, also to be said that what we look from in government is that the current SSI wallets, and maybe also referring to the SF Labs aspect, they will need to also to play a role in that EU digital identity wallet. So it cannot be a bit in a separate world. Governments will look at, okay, but we have an EU wallet, we want to have its SSI component, so how do you see how they can evolve to also play in that big league? If not, they will only play a significant role in that, or a small role in limited cases. So the amount of money that is involved, it is also in a big co-financing fee. So 50% is co-finance, but you see the amounts that now Europe wants to invest to see how they can be supported. So in the next year, potentially the project can already start in September. So now but it's a very tight deadline. So you see, they have just been released, but in May, the consortium and the project proposals needs to be there. Now, in our view, but again, in those technical aspect seen, what is in our interest is say, okay, that a group or consortium not only look at the eIDAS aspect, but also look at the decentralized aspect. This is a bit translated into EPSI, but of course you need to see this bigger as the decentralized identity components. So in the best case, you have business domains with member states. I also looked from in our view from public sector, but given that kind, you need to have a situation where you can give input to eIDAS, but also look at the components that are sort of looking into the SSI ecosystem. And in the best case, things are being in balance. So this kind of things are, of course, very heavy into, okay, how can we have a coexistence, how we can have a transition, and how we can try to see have models that will work together. But coming back to the remarks that you already made, okay, but how is the citizen protection and privacy by design included in aspect? What is the role of the public and private sector in that aspect? And what is about the social and political discussion? So next to that technical discussion that's currently going on, how do we see those more important topics? Because they will determine if this project will be successful or not successful. So I already also going from a more in a technical view, I'm more and more concerned about those kind of things. So there is no, at this current moment, I see that in the Netherlands, the discussion is emerging. In Germany also a bit. In other countries, there is no discussion on the political and social level. So we need to see how this can emerge. So what I'm going to share now in the next slide are some ideas, and that some experts that share a bit the same concerns are trying to make in a kind of manifesto. So I'm not talking only about SSI or blockchain or whatsoever. I'm talking about decentralized identity. And we need to give, it's my opinion, we need to give a strong message towards the political level, the people responsible for that they need to take on other concerns, that they need to look at a higher level, because, to be honest, digital identity is too important to just leave to the technical people. We have seen that in the past years, how only expert view can be sometimes a threat to certain things. So we need to have a democratic discussion about it. And to mention that van Philippe, the Solid project in the Flemish government, to say so, that's one of the decentralized ideas, the decentralized concepts. So I don't want to look at today at specific technological solutions about, okay, what is the approach? And the Solid is in the same light as SSI or whatsoever. So we need to look at from that level. Now, if we look at what is happening in society, of course, this is not a picture, that is not a surprise. But if you look at identity, we see in some part of the world a very state-controlled identity, or some part of the world, and it's of course globalized, very heavily influenced by hyper-commercialization, of course. And what is in the statement is to be say is that we need to go back and to say, okay, digital identity is not only a commercial relation or a surveillance combination. It needs to be in the first place something that empowers the individual. That should be the base to think about all the things that we do. Not go only, okay, data is the new oil, or data can give us more security, anti-terrorism. No, it's about the citizen, respecting them in the individual way. What we also claim, I want to claim in that manifesto that we'll be sharing, is of course that we need also to look, if we have it on the grand vision, that open standards need to be very followed. So we need to have a system that follows open source and open standards. So if we build a big framework, we need to look at it. That is not included today as a base aspect, but we believe, together with some of our colleagues, that is also a mandatory aspect. What we also see and needs to be discussed in the bigger level, sorry to make it a bit a political statement in this, we need also to see what kind of aspect do we include in the system, and what is the responsibility also from government. This is a good example that emerged in the last years or last months. Apple made it a wallet ID, but then again, it changed the role, how it looked and interact with the government. So what we also see, and we need to be covered also in that identity aspect, is that digital government requires digital sovereignty of the state. You cannot say that you hand over the sovereignty towards a commercial player or another institution or consortia without the consent, democratic consent of the citizen. So it needs to be also very clear, where do we go? If people, like in the other example of states, hand over those responsibilities to Apple, what is the democratic control that we have? In the same aspect, of course, is we see this as a public infrastructure, but it gets at this current moment very privatized. So this is also a big risk also in the eIDAS group, that we'll see that the identity infrastructure is not something that can be controlled by government, but is something that's completely privatized and where you don't have access. In our beliefs and our discussion point should be that digital identity at this large scale that Europe is wanting to do needs to be a public infrastructure, something that everybody can use, so the bases are clear, and it's not something that is being closed or that you don't have access, and it's also something there where you have democratic control about this infrastructure, that you clearly can guide what are the rules and what are not the rules. Because of course, if you look at it and give the example a lot of times, when you open a bank account, you know that your account is very heavily regulated. Nobody can claim that he's a bank and go away with your money or do fraudulent things. With identity, we don't seem to care. Everybody can claim he's an identity provider, okay, of course in the eIDAS regulation, but claim that I will store your wallet or I will store your identity aspect. So we need to come, and I come a bit back to the remark that that Rix has given. Yeah, we need stronger laws, stronger regulations to protect those digital identities. At this currently moment, you don't have any power as citizens or any aspect to say, okay, my identity has been stolen, somebody is misusing the power balance. You don't have any aspect. So in that technical solution that we have, we need to very indeed, Rix, protect those aspects, actively protect it, not just have the GDPR cookie consent aspect, but we need to have, I think, a data police actively involving. Right? Has somebody have the power to check my my medical data or not? All those kind of things need to be very included. But of course, maybe you see this is very public sector driven, and it is, of course. But we need to also see how the position of the private market is. In my personal opinion, it is not up to one party or startup to control the whole ecosystem, to drive it, but you need to see how parties can be. In my past as a blockchain program manager, I had interaction with a lot of startups claiming, yeah, but I have the perfect solution. I'm building your network, I'm building the wallet, I'm building everything. So they were the ecosystem. That is not the way that we need to see this. You have a public infrastructure and you can be a part of that. We don't want any monopolist or a big party or new Facebook to say so, an identity that controls every potential interaction. So the monopoly is very difficult. So we need, of course, private companies are a partner in this, in that trusted identity ecosystem. Not the driver or the controller, the monopolist, but a healthy model. So that is, and that's also what we see to eIDAS. You need to actively engage. The stakeholder management, this moment is not clear, so they need to be more involved. And of course, what we also need to see, and it is also written in our manifesto we'll release, is we need to say, okay, how we make this digital identity work for everybody. Not only for those people that are commercial most interested, but also to see that also other groups are included. Because the digital world is not something that you can exclude people. So as a last statement, we wanted to say, okay, digital identity must be inclusive. And that's, of course, something that states or governments also need to be aware, that we don't use this system to exclude people or only look at, okay, the happy few that are interesting, that have interesting data, and others not. So at the end, we want to see that at the current moment, you as a user in that new eIDAS aspect of the identity are a bit lost. You don't know what it is going to be, and people mistrust also what is happening. So I think at this moment you are just a data object, purely commercially interesting, and you get exploited aspect, or even worse, surveillance, data surveillance aspect that comes into. We need to change that, and I think Europe has the opportunity to change that. But then again, this will not come from only tech guys, you speaking to tech guys and having a nice solution. So my statement is a bit, and maybe this forum is not the only one that we will need to do that, but of course, say, okay, this is a political discussion. So need to see, bring it on in, have a real democratic discussion about it, so that we can really put the user into center. So that was a bit my statement, maybe less technical than you expected, but I think digital identity, again, is not only about nice buzzwords and nice technical aspect. It's way more important. It's your access to a new digital world that even is more important than the physical world, to say so. So we need to be very, very careful what we do, because there's also what mentioned a few times. Now we have the moment to construct it. The gate is now open, but the gate will close for the next 10 years. So if we do it wrong in Europe at this moment, we'll be having a closed gate for the next 10 years, and we'll need to wait to eIDAS version 3. And that would be, I think, in my opinion, a big loss. So I hope this is a bit inspiring. I don't know. I'm very curious to hear if this reaction analysis is on the right aspect, or that you see it completely different, of course. So that's a bit my story. Thanks for listening, Robert. And over back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. I think it was a great presentation, and you provide some insight on the current developments. So, like you just mentioned, the floor is open for questions. Already some questions were being during the session itself. So I'm not sure if there are any other questions. Please raise your hand. One is just coming in from Jurjen, and it's about the role of the Data Governance Act. It seems to be that data intermediaries such as EU ID wallet providers.
Indeed, the Data Governance Act is also a very important one. It is also shared that philosophy to say, okay, empower the citizen to have the more equal aspect. So, but how we give that concretely form is also to be determined. So a nice intention text, like I do all due respect, GDPR was also a good intention, but we saw that it was not implemented in the same ways. So the data intermediaries as EU wallet providers could be an option, but we also need to reflect how this will be really implemented, and what is again the power balance and the openness that we have in this aspect. So to be determined at this moment, but kind of discussion that we need, of course.
Yeah, correct. So you also mentioned in your presentation, I think that's a recurring discussion about the fact that public and private have to work together. And in the past, based on history, it seems to be sometimes really a struggle to find each other. What's your opinion on that?
Well, and that aspect, I think also the eIDAS aspect did a false start, because it was always the closed public sector driven. So they had the chance, or they have missed the opportunity to, from in the beginning, open that network. So what you see currently is that eIDAS, EU Digital Wallet, are closed public service driven. They want to, of course, stakeholders. And on the other hand, you have also private initiatives that also only gather private aspect. So it's a very difficult aspect, but I think that there will be the success to really know what to have that partnership. But we need to have another approach on this. So it's not happening at this moment. To be clear.
And what is this other approach then, Daniel? Do you have any suggestions?
But I think they should, of course, going to back, I think they need to be open, and they need to completely be transparent to what they are doing. The closed groups that they have today need to break open, and as soon as possible. We did also the same mistake with EPSI that we think, okay, we now first gonna tank, but I don't think there's another. There is a danger to be at the beginning transparent as possible and interact with people. So I think openness and transparency of what is happening is necessary. And then, of course, have a discussion on social leading. What is the role of the government? Really determine that. And then, of course, private firms can, of course, better position themselves in this.
Okay, great, thanks. I see some hands being raised. So Xavier Villa, not sure if you are also able to, share your camera. Great. So you have a question.
Robert. Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for the presentation. Nice to see you again. I had a question regarding what you were saying. I think I couldn't be more more aligned with what you say about this idea of opening and not leaving only the conversation to us, to technical people and engineers. And my question is, well, I think it's not only directed to you, but since you brought it to the stage, I think it's a really open question. Is what's the best thing as community, as stakeholders, as people interested into doing things the right way, that we can push for this, for once, where we could drive these non-technical conversations first, and second, how can we make that the Commission opens to what there are your suggestions or ideas on this subject?
I think the main drive, of course, they have the member states that are driving this. So I think and you are doing also great work in Catalonia and in Spain, if the Spanish people can bring this in, okay, but this is really working in our country and we have the necessary pilots, and they need to be enforced to say so. So talk to your local government representative. That's always the case. They say, okay, but we have agreed that this alternative works. So I think that will be the next case. And I think also, maybe to be very specific, we need also to be sure that on the decentralized identity things that we do, that we are taking into consideration that we are a stable solution. So we'll need to play in another league. So there will be also taking some more consideration, because as current SSI solutions need to evolve to a higher secure aspect. So they need to be in a new league and will be able to do that. So we need to mature on technical level, and we need to see, okay, how can we influence the local representative that they break this discussion up. But luckily, for you, Xavier, and for all the Dutch colleagues, Netherlands and Spain are already on that road. So they are actively lobbying, actively working that new things have been done. But of course, more support from other countries could be also useful.
Thank you, Daniel.
Great, thanks. So another hand is from Andy Tobin. Hey, there you are.
Hey, thanks, Robert. Thanks for the presentation, Daniel. Very interesting. There hasn't been much discussion around the economics of eIDAS. Our experience has been that everyone gets very excited about the technology and you get lots of innovation. And then when it comes to the accountants, they say, well, where's the money? Where's the business model? Is that coming, do you think? Is there going to be like a sort of end-to-end revenue model in eIDAS? How do you see that developing?
A very good question and a very good statement. It is not a topic at this moment, but I think it is a fundamental topic, because they see a happy part of issuers and verifiers, everybody happy sharing. But why would I, as issuer, do all the effort and not everybody pays for that? So there is at this moment not a clear view, and because they have a lot of aspects, you could have a model what they are thinking, governments give their credentials for free, so that's their contribution. But the real added value is that indeed private companies also do those kind of things. So it's not very clear how they want to do that. They want to ensure things or stimulate things with funding, but you don't have a stable ecosystem only with funding. So that is also a lack. What is the business model of this? That is something to be considered, because the big ambitions, you have seen that in the slide, the ticketing, the banking, the railways, all those kind of things, but it doesn't emerge. What's in it for me, or why do I make the spending is not clear. So a very good point.
I'm glad I haven't missed anything. I think it's going to become increasingly.
No, I hope I missed it, but I think that will be the fundamental thing. You need to have stable. That's also the reason why eIDAS version 1 didn't came to very extent. They didn't see how what is it for the private firms in it. Nothing much.
Yeah, very good. Okay, thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah, indeed. Like Oscar is mentioning, business model equals taxpayers. Yeah, that could be a model, but I don't know.
I've never seen a government give a credential for free. They always charge you something, right?
Indeed, for a stamp or for whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. So also a hand from Joost. There you are, Joost. You have a question.
Yes. Hi. Thanks for your presentation, Daniel. I had a question about the user centricity you were talking about, because I always think that's quite paradoxical with the technical discussion about a centralized or decentralized model. How do you look on the question that shouldn't it be up to the citizen to choose whether they want a solution based on a centralized or based on a decentralized model, that a person can choose? Because I also see a relation between a balance between privacy and usability, perhaps. Could you reflect on that a bit?
Yeah, that's indeed a good question and a good topic. There is that imbalance. We will be having maybe people that want to have a very secure thing and want to control that interaction in every way. At this moment, you don't have the opportunity. And maybe people do want to have, more usability aspects and giving into security. On the other hand, we see that in commission laws and in a commission statement, they don't want to make again that compromise. They want to say, no, we want to be usable, but also secure by default. So you see a certain tendency to say, okay, no, wallet needs to be secure by default. So we're not allowing all those data exploitation things at the aspect, but it also needs to be usable. And again, I think also coming back to the question of Andy, is of course need to be the model, of course, because now today we pay with our data for the usability, and we lack the security. If you change that model, what is the revenue that based on it? So it's a very difficult question, and we need to see how this can be used. But again, indeed, the citizens, you can have, again, like in the banking accounts, a very highly secure bank account, but maybe you have also cheaper options. So to say, okay, but the base protection of the citizens is of course needed. But again, those are the topics that we are lacking in the current discussion.
Okay, great, thanks. So another hand is from Boris. Sure if you're able to. There he is. Hi.
Hello.
That's a familiar face. Welcome, Boris.
Thank you. So I had a question on when the draft legislation was published. Basically, one of the parts was that the other side of the coin, basically acceptance, that that the idea is to force the acceptance of the means. And of course, if you read through the reactions of the concerned parties, they were all for a general means, but against a forced acceptance. What is going to be left of that, and how is that progressing?
Does you mean the acceptance, the forced acceptance that will different countries and different companies need to be placed? Is what?
Yes. So so basically, if you have a dominant market share, so basically Apple, Google, Facebook will need to, you will be able to log in with your digital identity instead of your Apple identity, right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to do business with a major bank, then you don't get a means from the bank anymore, but you can use your digital wallet. But that means that they need to do stuff.
Indeed. So they will try to force that, and again also a bit on the economic model, but that will be obliged by law. Yeah. So that's still the ambition to say, okay, we have developed the wallet, and now the citizens can make other services, make them compatible with that wallet. Yeah? This is still the idea. How they will achieve that, they will try to do that with law, but also with funding or incentive to do those kind of things. But it's still on the radar. Still have very heavily. That's also why every country is also obliged to create that wallet, and that wallet will be not only in their country acceptable, but also of course in other countries. Yeah? But again, not to be cynical, but that was also the ambition in version 1. Yeah? And we saw what it came from. So they will need to change how they will need to do that to really have the acceptance base. And of course, what we also see is Apple, Facebook are getting a bit nervous about what is happening at this moment. what is the European laws? They have seen that with GDPR. So there is, of course, also saying, okay, what's happening? No? So on the positive side, I think if Europe can make a difference in this area, it could be, of course, a good thing. Yeah? But to be seen how we can have that big acceptance based. On the other hand, we see also parties that are interested in say, okay, this model gives us also the necessary means to form another aspect. We don't need to only have Facebook or Google login. We can have now other products that are trying to see, I have also another place that we are compliant, or maybe if users are also involved in that, can also look at those kind of things.
And then one maybe curious question is, in theory, you could argue that your car keys is also a digital service provider. So do you think that it will be in scope that I can use my digital wallet to drive my car?
Potentially it would, because that is indeed also a very interesting aspect. We are now talking about mainly people, but at a certain moment, things will be also having aspect, houses, cars, whatever, IoT thing. There will be also a discussion. I don't think that they will be self-sovereign, but they will be interacting with those kind of things. And you'll be having also mandates to cars, mandates to organizations. So it's a very complex thing. And even further, your metaverse aspect of digital me will be having also his identity. Maybe he detached from you. That is more for another discussion, of course. No, but it's evolving. They need to see, okay, this is the evolution that we need to foresee in the 5-10 years that this regulation is going for. If not, it will be difficult.
Okay.
Super. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Boris.
Boris.
So we're coming to the last minutes of the lunch break. One last question that I have is, Daniel, you also mentioned about the schedule and the things that still need to be done. But what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge there in order to meet those timelines and make sure that we are going to get those results, which we all are hoping that it will be there?
Difficult question, of course. I think coming back is, of course, acceptance. That society also takes this up, that party takes that up, and that it can be a success. If not, it's going to be a niche of just government to government interaction. It will not be an aspect. So I think acceptance is a big one, and choosing the right vision, the right model will be also an aspect. Because to be clear, in the past 2 years, how we look at our citizen towards a government, that was a government initiative, has changed. You cannot say now you come with a solution that is not privacy environment, that not so respect the citizen. So you need to also look at what is happening to society. So I think acceptance is a big aspect, but also respect to democratic things and democratic values that we need to do.
Okay. And do you think that's going to be a big incentive for all the member states really to give this priority and to make the next step?
Well, all the member states don't need to have to do that, but if we have a core of people really thinking about this, then it will be driving. So, but I see that in Europe already happening. Netherlands is heavily looking at this aspect. Spain, other countries are looking at. So if we have a forefront of people, and we have in the eIDAS aspect enough bandwidth to do those kind of things, or enough space, then there will be evolution. If we don't have anything, then it will be difficult.
Yeah.
But of course, let's be clear again. It's not only about picking the right technological solution and everything is okay. We have seen enough examples in the last months, years, that even with the technology can be misused in whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's a wise lesson. So let's see if we all learn something about this. I don't think there are any other questions. I see still a hand from Boris, but I think that's a hand from the previous question. So we come to the end of the lunch break. So again, Daniel, would like to thank you for your presentation. Also, other people who are attending in order to ask any value questions. I think it was really a good discussion. Maybe we do need to make the agreement, Daniel, for next year. to have a presentation again and to see where we are at that end regarding the timelines that we have, and also present an update. Maybe it's good to do that.
Okay, and hopefully as a positive
We'll see.
review.
We are positive.
Yeah,
Daniel.
okay,
So,
perfect.
great. Thank you all also for attending this lunch break. There are going to be lunch breaks in the future. Just follow our website, www.idnext.eu. Also means for other promotion of events. One thing is also, save the date, end of September, our annual IDnext event will take place again in person. So hopefully we will meet each other there, or maybe sooner on another IDnext event. Would like to thank you, wish you a good day, and also keep safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.